We were being told no constantly for both Twitter and Square. With Twitter, it was, why should this exist in the world? No one needs it. With Square, it was, this can't exist in the world. I operate by the principle, if I believe in something, I fight like hell for it. I figure out whatever it needs to take to make it work. It all comes down to that shared sense of purpose and you're actually doing something you believe in. And if you don't, then it's a bad idea for you at the time. The best technologies remind us as humans that we already have everything we need. Technology to me does two things. It increases the velocity of communication and it increases the number of people who can participate. That's it. That's really all technology for our entire history has ever done. The best technologies really truly disappear, and you see this. Just 40 years ago, a computer fit in this room. Now it fits in my pocket. Sometimes it's a crutch. Sometimes we get caught up in it and we are obsessed with our screens. But I would also say that life is happening on the other side of that screen as well. It's not the case that just because I'm on Twitter or I'm texting my friend that I'm not in the moment. I am in the moment with that person. I'm absolutely in the moment with that person. It's just absolutely not fair to dismiss that. My father, when he was 19 years old, he dropped out of high school. He started a pizza restaurant with his best friend. It was called Two Nice Guys. And they loved it. They just love what they do. And they didn't wake up saying I want to be an entrepreneur, I want to build a business. They said, I want to make pizza, and business formed around it. They wanted to preserve their friendship and also the business. So they made one rule between the two best friends. They would not date the waitstaff. Then the first person they hired was my mother. My father fell in love with my mother and said, I broke the rule. A week later, he gave the business to his best friend, and I was born 10 months after that. I dropped out of my first university, and then I dropped out of my second university, and my mom still asked me, when are you going back to school? They were not the most comfortable with all my choices, but they trusted me to make the right ones.
Have they stopped asking now?
No, they still ask. It's still a topic of conversation once a week. When I was very young, I was just obsessed with cities and how they work. I wanted to see what was happening in the world. I got into building maps on my computer. Taught myself how to program. I never really wanted to be an engineer or a programmer, but I wanted to see this idea exist in the world where I could see the city living and breathing in real time. I learned enough to draw a map and then to make the dots move around the map and then constrain them within streets. My parents had a police scanner and I could listen to ambulances. I would take that information and then put it in my program and I could actually simulate the path of an ambulance. And then little by little, I would add other data sources like police cars and taxis and trucks and black cars and couriers. I could see the city, I could see it live, I could see it breathe, but I was missing one key element, I was missing the people. I tried to build this very simple system in 2001 that accepted the email that I would send from my BlackBerry RIM 850 pager. And I quickly learned when I sent the first one that no one really cared and no one else had a BlackBerry. It was just the wrong time. But in 2006, I was working in a company called Odeo. I was inspired by the people working there. I was not inspired at all by podcasting, and I quickly learned that no one else in the company had an interest in podcasting either. But we had a great set of people. SMS was this really rough around the edges technology. I fell in love with it. I thought it was beautiful. It brought up this simple idea of being able to use SMS to share what I was doing and also to receive those in real time. I was given one other engineer, Florian, and Biz Stone, my co-founder. We were given 2 weeks to build a prototype and it worked. And the first tweet I sent was inviting my coworkers from Odeo to join this new service that we were calling TWTTR, Twitter at the time. We had a bunch of names. We called it Jitter, we called it Twitch, and none of those names bring up the best sort of images. Noah went to the dictionary and he looked at the TWs and he found this word Twitter, which means a short, inconsequential burst of information and chirps from birds. We said, wow, this is perfect. So we took it and then we complicated it a little bit more by taking the vowels out, tried to get a short code that was TWTTR. Turned out that Teen People magazine had that short code, so we couldn't get that. So we put the vowels back in and we went with Twitter. The 140 characters was both a practical decision and also a conceptual decision. We wanted to build a service that anyone on the planet could use with any device. The cheapest device you can find is a $5 cell phone. It can handle 160 character text messages at a time. But we need to make sure that we have a username in front of it. We arrived at 140 characters. That meant that anyone in the middle of Kenya can have the same conversation that Justin Bieber is having on his iPad. Really levels the playing field. The conceptual notion of 140 characters is we believe that constraint inspires creativity. The 140 characters allows people to be more of the moment, off the cuff, less shy, less composed, so they can really say what they feel. That constraint was really important and powerful.
I could never ask for anything.
Had the most wonderful weekend.
The dog I've had.
So happy my girlfriend.
Twitter's had multiple tipping points. The first week of using it, when I was at the office and Biz was repairing some carpet in his house and Ev was in Napa drinking wine, we all were living these very different lives, but we were all getting, each other's tweets, and we felt like we were still one unit. The next one was when Obama was elected. He gave a speech to Congress. I was looking up at CNN, and the camera started panning around to all the senators and the congressmen, congresswomen, and they were all on their phones. And then my pocket buzz, I took out my phone, and it was a tweet from Senator Claire McCaskill, my senator from Missouri. She tweeted that, she was at this speech and she was so proud of him. And I actually saw her on television, right? So it just had this immense connection to my government, to my country, a process that a lot of us don't really understand, feel disconnected from. And suddenly, the thing I was watching on television, someone on a podium, became very real and very human to me. And all those points, it felt like, oh, this is something substantial. This is something that's going to really stick and do something meaningful in the world. I think Twitter is great at providing all those checkpoints, the man on the street account, the flavor of what's happening, the roar of the crowd. It's just a question of how the traditional, quote unquote, old media, embraces the new, and how the new surfaces the best of the quote unquote old. The first thing I check when I wake up in the morning is Twitter. And it's one of the last things I check before I go to sleep. So it's definitely how I get my news. Twitter is simplifying communication, and if you look at other forms of communication, commerce is one of them. And we realized, well, there's 26 million small businesses in America, just small businesses that don't accept credit cards. And what that means is they're losing sales, because that's how every buyer in America wants to pay right now. I reconnected with my friend and my first technology boss, Jim McKelvey. He was running a glass factory in St. Louis, Missouri. He was selling glass art. He called me one day in frustration and said he just lost a sale of a piece of his glass art because he couldn't accept a credit card. And it seemed so trivial and so easy to accept credit cards, but for whatever reason, he couldn't do it. We decided to take a month to build a prototype to answer that question, why. It really resonated with folks who were artists, who had flower carts, who were instructors, personal trainers, and we decided, maybe we should do this full time, and maybe we should make a company out of it, and that's what we did.
Square makes everything a little easier, and I'm selling more bouquets than ever.
The number of small businesses, the number of independent businesses in the United States, and more so the world today, has never been growing at a faster rate. It's really stunning to see, and Square has definitely been a major, major part of that. It's never been easier to start something. It's never been easier to move as fast as one can. It's never been cheaper. You can be an entrepreneur within a company. You can change the whole direction of a company with a great idea. So I would encourage everyone to just really be confident in what they believe in. You look at Twitter and you look at the internet, and what those represent is, potential for this global mind, this global brain, where we can actually see anything that's happening in the world. At any point, you can have access to information anywhere in the world. Anyone can participate in it. And I want to believe that we already have that power, and we just need to be reminded of that.